Hey guys, and welcome to the Infinity Flux Day Early Comic Review video. I'm Andy.
I'm Matt.
And we are here with a pretty big week. So if you're not familiar with our show, we go over the books that are coming out this week a little bit early, and we kind of go spoiler light. We'll tell you if there's anything, maybe some first appearances, but we're going to leave the fun stuff for you to discover when you go in your store and you read it. But like I was saying, it's a pretty big week with some pretty heavy hitter books from Marvel and DC.
Yeah, this is the first time I've been on this show, and what a week to do it, because there's a whole bunch of big stuff on this. It's great.
I know, I was looking at all the stuff that was coming out and be like, trying to divvy it up, and I was like, well, I mean, usually we have like one or two like really big ones, and then, but it's like, there's a bunch of number ones, a bunch of books that a lot of people are going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. You want to start us off with?
I'll start with Titans #1. So this is DC's next Dawn of DC book, and just like all the rest of them, it's pretty interesting. So this is written by Tom Taylor with art by Nicholas Scott. It is move-in day to the new Titans Tower, which is in Bloodhaven. Nightwing has invited the public to come sort of witness it. I don't know how exciting watching somebody move into a building is, but you know,
once they're inside, you're just like,
yeah, you're like, okay, yeah. But you know, the Justice League has been disbanded ever since the end of Dark Crisis, and the Titans are filling that void as DC's premier super team. But they don't get to spend much time moving in at all before they're called away to deal with Titano, who's a big robotic ape, big robotic monkey attacking a nuclear power plant. Just as you do. They do take care of that as a nice cohesive team. But when that's over, they are greeted by Peacemaker, who wants them to work for the government. Obviously, they say no, but maybe he doesn't like that answer, and maybe some seeds are planted for some things to come. Another big story that's coming in the DC universe, which is you get a little bit more of that in the Dawn of DC Primer book that should be free in stores this week. Is that right? Yeah. So between the end of this and that book, you'll get a little bit of a taste of things to come in the DC universe. And also, that's not it, because the Titans will then find that they have another mystery to solve when they get back to Titans Tower.
So do you think this is DC's now their flagship book? Like, this is kind of the one leading the way into whatever the next big event is and all of that?
Yeah, I think so. Especially with what's in that Dawn of DC Primer book, I think this will be the one where that's going to happen. Like, this might be the core of that.
That's interesting. It's hard to get out of your head of like, well, that's where Justice League stuff happens.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, treat this like Justice League.
This is essentially Justice League for all intents and purposes right now. So this is our A cover with art by Nicholas Scott. But then we have our Jim Lee variant as well with the team right there. We've also got our Jen Bartel, Dick Grayson with Bitewing there, right? Is that,
Yep.
Holding one of his Eskrima sticks. And then we've also got the Bruno Redondo trading card cover, which is a sort of a wraparound because you get trading cards on the back as well. So feel free to buy one of those and then cut them all out. And then we have a blank sketch cover done by no one until you ask somebody to do it.
Ask them nicely.
Ask them nicely, yes.
Okay, so I've got kind of the on the other side of the table, we've got Avengers #1. So Jason Aaron wrapped up his huge run on Avengers, and we are starting a new one, this time by Jed MacKay and C.F. Villa. And this is really fun. This is a little bit of an oversized issue, and it's definitely your introduction issue. So in this, we find out that Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, was pretty much voted to be the main chairperson of the Avengers.
Very cool.
It's always hard to figure out what's the, like, how does the Avengers work? Is it like they have a chairperson, but they're also on the team?
Right.
But does that make them the leader? I know there's like some weird stuff there. But Carol is now in charge of the Avengers, and when you get that, you get to decide who you want to at least ask to be on your team. So that is mostly what this issue is about. But it does cut between Carol going to different characters and basically being like, I've selected you because of X, Y, and Z reasons. Why we think you deserve to be on the Avengers. But that is jumping back and forth. I think it says like 6 days later, something like that, with a big fight with Terminus.
Okay.
The giant robot, techno-organic monster thing. I feel like he's mostly there to like give them something to fight.
Sure, yeah.
To introduce the characters. And it's fun every time Carol goes, in the couple of days before and recruits somebody. Then when you cut back to that, that's that character kind of entering the fray. And you see kind of how they're dealing with that. It's no surprise who the team is. They're there on the cover. You've got Captain Marvel, you've got Sam Wilson, you've got Vision, Scarlet Witch, Thor,
Black
Panther, and Iron Man. And I really like seeing why Carol picks the people she picks. And I also like that a lot is tied in with recent events, not so much that you had to have read Jason Aaron's run on Thor or the stuff that went on with like the Eternals and Judgment Day and all that, but it is brought up. And parts of those play into the factor of why they were selected. But that is not all, because something happens at the end of this that's going to catapult us into what is the big story going to be in Avengers. If you read not the Free Comic Book Day book, but
Timeless,
yeah. Marvel Timeless, you do have a little hint of what that story is going to be. So, very cool first issue. The art is fantastic. I like the lineup of characters. Dialogue is great. Overall, definitely recommending Avengers #1. We also have some variant covers for that as well. Quite a few, actually. So, of course, you got to have your Scotty Young cover. This one's really funny.
Love it.
We've got the Acuna variant. We've got the Mark Brooks corner box variant.
Yeah. I love corner box art.
We've got Kale New variant.
I love that one.
It's so hard to... I commend them all for fitting as many characters on as they do. But then you have like the John Tyler Christopher color bleed
color
variant.
rush. Yeah.
We also have a Derek Chu variant with Scarlet Witch.
That was very nice. Yeah, some of my favorite issues of Avengers, or maybe even like Justice League, are the first issues where they pick the teams.
Yep.
There's been so many Avengers issues throughout the years, in the 70s and 80s, where they're like, who's the new lineup? I don't know. Let's look at a monitor of faces and pick them, So next, we're going to stay with Marvel, and we're going to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy #2. So this is written by Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing with art by Kev Walker. So if you guys read the first one, you know that it had a very Western feel to it. This one is not like that. So that Western style, Star-Lord with a cowboy hat,
like duster.
Yeah, it's not in this. So that was just, but this one's still pretty good. So this one features, the story is about a war that's being fought for a sector of space known as the Manifold Territories. So you have one side which is like the Kree and the Shi'ar, but then you have another side with a group, and I actually can't remember the name of the other side, but basically there's a big war going on for a sector of space. The Guardians come in to try to intervene and try to tell them basically to knock it off because Grootfall is coming. So in the first issue we saw this I guess it's like some kind of entity just known as Grootfall. It's basically Groot has, I guess, we don't know the story behind it yet, but it looks like Groot has evolved from, basically just your standard tree, I am Groot, to a big cosmic menace, like a giant head.
It's kind of like Ego almost.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Weird. Yeah.
And there's no reasoning with it, and it's just wanting to come and consume everything in the galaxy. Well, so in this issue, Peter and Mantis go to talk to one side, while Nebula and Gamora go to talk to another side. And in true Guardians fashion, it doesn't go well for either of the teams that try to talk to their respective sides, and everything goes haywire, and they eventually just have to end up running away, basically. But before they do, they remember we're the Guardians of the Galaxy, and we need to get a little something for ourselves. So they do steal something from one of the sides that they talk to, and just a lot of really fun space cosmic adventures. The art is really fun. Just a really, especially we're coming off of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, still in theaters, having had a great second weekend. So if you're still riding high on Guardians, this is a good book to read because it has those exact same characters. It's only those characters too, which I thought, the last run of Guardians was these characters, but it had a lot more characters as well. So it's like, well, if I'm in a Guardians, if I'm on a Guardians kick, I have to read those, but a whole bunch of other, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. This is like its own thing, just these Guardians, and it's a lot of fun. So we have this A cover by Marco Cicchetto. We also have this cover. This is by, oh shoot, I didn't get this one down. Do you know who that one is?
I'm not sure, but it's the Spider-Verse
variant.
the
Spider-Verse variant with Groot and Rocket there. And then we have, that's Momoko, right?
Yep. It's the Peach Momoko.
Peach Momoko Nebula cover, which is very, very nice.
You showed me a fun image with Nebula in there where she...
Yeah, the side that they're talking to are technopaths. And they can, like, speak some weird language and control technology. Well, she's technology, right? And they do something weird with her head for a minute, which is really funny.
It's always fun. Kind of remind me of the movie where she does a lot of weird body stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, I have Batman the Brave and the Bold #1. So this is another anthology from DC. And it's funny it's called Batman the Brave and the Bold because Batman's not in every story.
Right.
They just, Batman sells books. So, of course, we're going to put Batman on the cover and in the title. So I think the main selling point of this is the first story that's in it by Tom King and Mitch Gerads. And it is supposed to be the first kind of case between Batman and Joker. People in the city they don't know who the Joker is yet. So we see a very uncomfortable thing where there is a lost little girl and she runs into the Joker on a rainy night. Yikes. And of course, Joker, the way he talks is almost in like how in silent pictures, you've just got like it pops up with text and you read it. Those are his talking panels. And you don't even really see him. You just know it's the Joker. Very creepy, very disturbing story. But it's interesting where people are like, "Oh, thanks for finding my daughter. What was your name? Oh, Mr. Joker. Thank you." And you're like, you're gonna learn to hate that name.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But that is kind of the flagship story in there. We also have a new Stormwatch story from Ed Brisson, where we re-meet the team we met in that Wildstorm 30th anniversary special. The kind of new team that's made up of like Ravenger. We have Director Bones. We have, Phantom One. So a lot of those characters now are coming together, and we get kind of a better explanation of what Stormwatch is now and what they're going to be coming up in the future. That has art by Jeff Spokes, which is really nice. There's a Superman story by Christopher Cantwell that I really like that feels very nostalgic, where Superman remembers getting, or Clark remembers getting, those old decoder rings from like radio shows and stuff.
Drink your Ovaltine.
Well, now there is kind of a cosmic or magical decoder ring that comes to him, and he's like, I'm kind of really into this mission because this reminds me of being a kid. Great stuff between him and Lois in that one, so I love their dynamic in that story. And then finally we have a story by Dan Mora, does the writing and the art, and it definitely feels like the beginning of a thing, even though it says end. It doesn't say like to be continued, where the other stories do. In this one, it's a manga-inspired Batman story that it's not even like an Elseworlds. It's kind of like a alternate take on Batman, where things like the Cape Crusader is a mode that he's like activate Cape Crusader mode, and his armor like transforms into another thing. And in this one, he helps out two brothers who are looking for their missing third brother, and the kids' names are Richard and Jason. So you can kind of figure it out there. Really cool story there. But if you're kind of jonesing for some more of those like anthology style, 5 or 6 pages per story, with different art, different styles, you'll definitely like that.
And I was going to ask, does each story continue into the next issue, or are they all one and done?
It sounds like all of them are to be continued except for the last one.
Except for the coolest sounding one. No.
Yeah, but even that one, it's like, basically Batman's like, I'm going to help you find your brother. And it's like, okay, well, show me that.
Yeah, I want to see that. Yeah, for sure.
So, but all the rest pretty much say to be continued. We've got the variants. We've got this Jim Chung variant.
I like the Batman on that. The word Batman on that. It's nice.
We have the Frank Cho Superman. Very iconic. And then we do have this 1 in 25 Brian Hitch variant that we're selling to our customers for $15. You can see kind of the team that's going to be on Stormwatch on there.
All right, very cool. Well, moving on to, we'll stay with DC, and we'll talk about another Dawn of DC book. This is Cyborg number 1. Let me get that there. So this is written by Morgan Hampton with art by Tom Rainey, excuse me. So Cyborg in this, so, you know, we just talked about Cyborg in Titans. Well, so he's doing all that, but he also goes back home to Detroit to visit for a little bit. He's not there for very long before he's met with a little bit of bad news that his father has passed away. Now, that's not a spoiler either. That's just what the story is. So he's back at home, and you know, he's having to deal with the loss of his father. He has to give the eulogy at his father's funeral, which is a little bit. He's a little bit conflicted because he didn't have the best relationship with his father. You know, he wanted to do sports, and he wanted to inspire young people via athletics and things like that, whereas his father wanted something different for him. So while he's dealing with all that, we also are introduced to a new company called Solus, which is run by a guy named Marcus Wilcox. Now, this company sounds like 23andMe, but on steroids, right? So you can send them your DNA. They refer to it as like spit in a jar. I don't think it's quite that, but you can send them to your DNA, and they will in turn send you back a meal plan, a fitness workout, a career path, all based on your DNA, which is kind of strange, but kind of interesting. But this company also has, I guess, some kind of robotics division, because at one point there's a robot walking down the street and somebody says, oh, it must be one of those Solace delivery robots. So they have a robotics component to them as well. And Cyborg has an interesting run-in with one of those, and I won't say anything more than that, because that happens at the end, and that's going to kind of drive what the rest of this story is. But it was really interesting to see Cyborg out on his own again. You know, we've seen him with the Justice League, we've seen him with the Titans, we've seen him do some solo stuff in the past as well. But now here's a new solo story of him at home, dealing with things that hit a little bit closer to home for him, and what is that going to look like on down the road for him. So we have the main cover here by Edwin Gallman. And then we've also got a variant by this is by Tom Rainey. So this is what your interior art looks like there. And then we've also got a Jorge Corona variant, which is very cool as well.
And that's a 6-issue miniseries.
I'm not sure. Sometimes on the cover it'll say 1 of 6. This does not say that, but that
a lot of the Dawn of the DC books are, at least initially.
Yeah, initially. Hopefully it'll go the path of, Green Arrow getting extended to 12, or Poison Ivy getting extended to an ongoing, that kind of thing. But
next up, I've got a really fun one. This is Disney Villains Maleficent. And I'm really proud I've said Maleficent correctly.
So far, so good.
Not Maleficent.
There you go. Yeah,
that's always what I want to say. So this is a new one from Dynamite, as they are continuing their really big run on Disney properties, which is very cool. This is not following Scar, because Scar has only hit its, I believe, 2nd issue right now, but adding to that Disney Villains line. So Maleficent is really cool. I know a lot of people are very excited about this, because she's kind of one of the most iconic Disney villains, and I think a lot of even non-comic fans will like this, because I would say it feels, even though formatted, very much like a comic. Panels, speech bubbles, everything. But in this, it reads more as a fairy tale or a storybook, where you're not given like a distinct setup or anything. You actually find there's a boy who's running through the woods, kind of some very creepy woods, and lo and behold, he runs straight into Maleficent. And she's basically like, "What are you doing in my woods?" And the kid's like, "Well, actually, my family is not into adventuring or doing anything out of the normal, and I ran away from home because I want to have some like grand adventure. And he's like, basically, who are you? All this stuff. And she tells me, he's like, oh, I've heard stories of you. But this goes into this boy wanting to, being so enchanted by Maleficent that he tries to steal something from her castle. And of course, that is not going to go well.
That's not good. That's a no-no.
You will find out pretty fast what happens to somebody who gets on her bad side, which I think is the only side she has.
Right.
But the art is very illustrative, almost color pencil, very, like centralized character, but then around it is a little less structured, so you really focus on the characters. Overall, really good, really fun book that I hope they continue to make these Disney villains, because there's so many they could do, and all with a very distinct style, all their own. So this is our A cover by Jay Lee. This is the Puebla variant. We have the Hazier variant. I believe this was one of the FOC variants. They were revealed right towards the end. We have a big one. This is the J. Scott Campbell cover.
Nice.
And we have to sneeze.
Bless you.
And this is our interior artist and writer, Sue Lee. So that you can get a hint of what the style in it is.
Very cool. Well, over at Marvel, we've got Fantastic Four number 7, but Legacy number 700. So kind of a big deal. Marvel likes to do, they like to go big for all the anniversary issues, whether it's 1, 25, 50, 75, or 100, or multiples of those. And this is no different. So this is written by Ryan North with art by Bon Coelho, who started this series. He hasn't been on the last couple issues, but he's back, and it's very nice to have him back because his art on this is fantastic. So the great thing about this book is it feels like a very Silver Age, like very early 60s book, because this is actually divided up into, I believe, 4 chapters. So if you go back and read like Amazing Spider-Man number 1 or Fantastic Four number 1 or any of those from the very early 60s, they are broken up into chapters, and they'll actually have like chapter numbers, chapter names. And that's what this one is like. So in this series so far, the Fantastic Four, they did something. Reed did some. I guess the whole team really did something bad in the first issue. We find out what it was later, but the city was mad at him, so they've been traveling cross country over the course of the series, and they finally make it to their destination, which is Uncle Ben's sweet Aunt Petunia's house, or I don't know if it's her house that she's living in, but it's a house that she owns, and she says that they can stay there for a while and fix it up, things like that. While they're there, they start to lose parts of their vocabulary. Like they can't think of, like they hold up a cardboard box and, to try to figure out what's going on. They say, somebody tell me what this is. And they say, it's a cardboard container, a cardboard carton. Like they can't think of like little words like box. And then over the course of the day, they start to lose, like their vocabulary starts to fade away. And they start to sing the alphabet, A, B, C, D, and it's just over and over to try to remember it. But as the more and more they sing it, they start skipping letters because they start forgetting letters until they get to the point where there are only 3 letters left that they remember, and that's O, D, and M. Well, when you rearrange those and add one, you get Doom. And they find out that Dr. Doom is behind it. Now, that's not a spoiler because that's what this story is about as well.
It feels so Silver Age of like a thing Doom would do.
Yeah, so he does that to prove that he can still get one over on him because he is mad that because of the bad thing that Reed and the rest of the team did, which was basically teleport the Baxter Building in a whole block of Manhattan 1 year into the future. And leaving everybody, so anybody who was in that block, like they'll meet up with him at some point, right? Because when a year comes, did I say a year? I said the future. Yeah. They teleported 1 year into the future. Yeah. When that year is up, the building will reappear and everybody will be reunited. But one of the people that was teleported that was actually in the Baxter Building was Valeria, who is Doom's goddaughter, and he said, when she was born, he vowed to protect her at all costs. Well, he sees that Reed put her in danger, so he's off to prove that he will save her. He will basically undo what Reed did. And from there, it becomes a sort of a time travel story, and it's one of those really fun ones of he goes back in time to try to correct it, but that didn't work. So he goes back in time again a little bit further to try to correct it, and that didn't work. So it goes back, and so there's a whole chapter that's dedicated just to Doom, which is really, really fun. Now, I won't tell you what the outcome of all that is, but it's really cool because it's like chapter 3, I think, is the Fantastic Four aren't even, it's all Doom, and he's being super arrogant. Oh, well, if that didn't work, then I'll go back and do this, and if that didn't work, I'll do this. And it's all this time travel stuff. And then the way that chapter ends and then rolls into the next one is really, really fun. So this is just continues to be a really fun series, a much different take on the Fantastic Four. They're not out in space doing all this. They're not charting extra dimensions. They're just doing all these weird little things that you would never think the Fantastic Four, you would see them doing, but it all works, and it works really well. The art is really great in this. So yeah, I just highly recommend this series, this run of Fantastic Four, and this one is a great addition to the series. So here we have our A cover. This is an Alex Ross cover. We also have a wraparound by Koblish, who this is one of those like 700 characters.
Oh yeah.
And so it wraps around, and there's just so many characters on that. And then we have this is our Simonson variant. Speaking of Silver Age feel, that looks very Silver Age. We also have our Greg Land variant featuring Mr. Ben Grimm himself. And then we have our Cam and Coley Spider-Verse variant. I love that. I've been loving these Spider-Verse variants. And then, Marvel likes to go big with the anniversary issue, so you've got to have your Rob Liefeld Deadpool homage cover as well. So, yeah, that is Fantastic Four.
Wow, I'm looking forward to getting to that one, especially all the Doom stuff.
This one in particular was just a lot of fun to read, especially because of Doom.
Yeah. Okay, next up, just briefly want to mention that Hulk Annual #1. Feels like every annual is #1 when it only comes out once a year. So Hulk Annual #1. This is after the Ryan Ottley, Donny Cates run, but before we get our new Philip Kennedy Johnson run. And so what I do like about this is we do have a little short prelude to the new Hulk series in there by Philip Kennedy Johnson, where you get a hint of what's to come. Now, the A story in this is kind of like a Blair Witch found footage Hulk story with some people who are, I guess it's almost like a Sasquatch thing. They're going to try to hunt down and find the Hulk, and they get drawn into a whole ordeal that includes the Mole Man. So, very fun one there. And then the backup story by Philip Kennedy Johnson. It looks like it's going to be a pretty creepy, monster-heavy Hulk book. I'm very excited to check out when it comes out in a couple weeks, I believe.
Yeah, the preview pages that have been online for that first issue look fantastic. And the way they show him, Banner transforming into the Hulk, looks very grotesque, like body horror almost, which is a different take.
I would say that quite a bit of body horror in this issue.
Okay,
so that is Hulk Annual #1. Don't miss that one.
So next, we have one from Image, a new one called Arcade Kings. This is the first issue. Now, this is written and penciled by Dylan Burnett. This one was really fun. So this is a little bit larger of a book. It's a square-bound book. I don't know if you can see that there, but it actually reads very, very quickly. So when I read this, I got vibes of Scott Pilgrim mixed with like a shonen anime, which Scott Pilgrim already kind of feels like that anyway, but this felt very Scott Pilgrim to me. It's very bright, very colorful, very stylized artwork, but it works for this story. It's a lot of fun. So this is about this guy on the cover here. His name's Joe. He's unbeatable in the arcade, especially with fighting games. So where he's at right now, it shows in one spot, there is a line of people lined up to challenge him to this fighting game, and he beats them all. But not only that, he's actually a pretty good like in real life fighter as well. He is actually challenged to a physical fight from this person that comes up and challenges him. They have this big robot that they're controlling with an arcade, like the old school NES like arcade sticks, and that is a little bit tougher for him, but he eventually is able to overcome that as well. But he's traveling around Infinity City, which is actually more like a big island. They actually show it looks like a big island with all these different cities on it. And the city he's in this first issue is one called Valley Town. What he's doing, he's looking for his younger brother Ken. And it gives you a little bit at the beginning, shows Joe and Ken when they're younger, and their father is this prized, famous fighter. And then it just jumps to present day where Joe is. He's looking for his younger brother, and we do learn that the person that challenged him with the big robot was sent by somebody. I won't say who it is, but we don't really know why, but it sounds like they're up to no good. It kind of looks like they're up to no good. So this was a really fun, not this book right here, yeah, this was a really fun, I mean, Fantastic Four was too, but this was really fun. Very, like I said, very colorful. If you're into video games and that kind of thing, this should be right up your alley. So I really like this one quite a bit. So we have the A cover here, and then we have a variant by Corey Lewis, which is very fun as well. This was a really, really fun, I like this one a lot.
I like colorful, looks action-packed.
Yeah.
Just really fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, next up I believe I am to The Vigil. So this is a new #1 from DC. The Vigil, this is not their first appearance. They appeared in some of the Lazarus Planet. They appeared here and there, but we've never learned a whole lot about them. Mostly we saw them in one story from Nightwing's perspective, all of that. But in this, we learned quite a bit more about the team. So this is written by, let's see.
That's Ram V, right?
Ram V, and the art is done by Lalit Kumar Sharma. And this is the best way I could describe it, and it's not what I thought going into it, but feels very like espionage, without trying to say James Bond, but that kind of I'm meeting this person on a park bench, and then they walk off, and then I reach under the park bench and pull up a manila envelope, that kind of espionage, which happens in this. But we learned that there is the Vigil is an organization, and they are there to prevent dangerous tech from falling into the hands of supervillains. Now, they will do this by kind of any means necessary, and we learned about that when a shipping container ship gets attacked by pirates and who are attempting to steal this stuff, and the Vigil, this team, go on there to stop them, and we see a little bit of the different members. We still don't know a whole lot about them. We more learn about them through a third party talking. But we see some of their powers, one of them apparently was born with a condition where their face is not attached to their skull. So it can be manipulated, and their bones are almost like plastic.
Okay.
So the one with the mask can basically scan someone's face and puts it on them, and it rearranges their face. The other one we see has the ability to pretty much dodge anything because of the way she was born. So it's kind of metahumans from more of kind of an X-Men. They were born with a lot of this stuff, and then this company kind of enhanced those abilities. So really interesting book, and we kind of see where the story's going by the end, but this is definitely another setup issue, being definitely because it's characters you've never really read before. So it's a lot about the Vigil, the corporation, and some of your big characters. But we get a cameo of a character called Mr. Lightless, which seems to maybe be the big villain for this series. Not sure, but very interesting first issue. This is our A cover. Then we also have, this is the Malavia cover. And we also have the Mon cover.
Very nice. Well, I will never pass up an opportunity to talk about Batman, Superman, World's Finest. This is number 15, which, we're 15 deep into a series now. This series still is super duper fun. Mark Waid, Dan Mora, the DC's dynamic duo, the 1-2 punch creative team. So this is continuing the story that we've been in for a couple of issues now. Something or someone is causing the robots in the world to go crazy. On the very first page, Red Tornado. We get a cameo of Red Tornado, and he saves somebody from a fire, but then he kind of shorts out. Just all kinds of robotics and robots around the world are going a little bit crazy. Meanwhile, we see Superman and Robin are fighting Ultramorpho, which is kind of like Metamorpho in that he can recreate any. So Metamorpho can recreate any element in the human body. Ultramorpho, one, is an android, but two, can create any element, period, including kryptonite, which is not good for Superman.
For 50% of the world's finest.
Right. But then Batman shows up with an assist. Because the way he shows up is really fun. So I won't say, Batman does show up, and he gets an assist from some other characters as well. All throughout this, there's a couple more pages of some other cameos in this that just so that we can see how the robots that are going crazy, how it's affecting other characters as well. This is just continues to be really fun. Batman and Superman end up getting captured, but Robin gets away with the help of some other characters, and he says, we got to call anybody we can call. And that's kind of how it ends, is, Robin is sort of scrambling to figure out who can help him, and he calls some different characters that we see, so that's a lot of fun. Just still an amazing book from DC. This is my favorite book on the stands across all publishers right now. This feels like a very fun Silver Bronze Age book. You could pick this up even if you've never read one, and even though it's in the middle of a story, you could still have a lot of fun with it because there's a lot of really cool imagery, a lot of really great art. The story is fun. Like, every page turns like, oh, what's going to happen? How are they going to beat this? Just really, really cool. So Batman, Superman, World's Finest, number 15. There is our A cover there. And then we have a B cover by Sam Pear featuring Batman and Superman, the World's Finest.
Wonder who gave them that name. Like, I doubt Superman or Batman would call themselves
Right.
World's Finest. That has to be a third party that's like, no, you guys are.
Yeah, they're like, I think we're the world's pretty good. I don't know if we're the finest, but we're decent.
Batman's like, it's the world's finest plus an alien. Okay, next up, I've got Nightmare Before Christmas. The battle. I always want to say the battle for the Pumpkin King, not the battle of the Pumpkin King, not the battle of any Pumpkin King, the Pumpkin King. So, this is really cool. This is kind of a prequel to Nightmare Before Christmas. This is published by Tokyo Pop, but it is full color. It's not like manga where it's black and white. Sometimes they print them in both manga style and comic, which is really interesting. But this is the full color one, and it tells the story of Jack and Oogie Boogie back when they were kids, and they were actually like best friends. They were very competitive with each other, but always good sports about it. Jack was faster because he's got longer legs, but when they did bobbing for apples, Jack has a very small mouth, and Oogie Boogie could fit like 10 apples in his mouth. But they always congratulated each other and like, I'm the best at this, but you're the best at this. Well, the former Pumpkin King, which I don't think we've ever seen him before, comes into town with the mayor, basically like, you all know I'm retiring, and I want to hold a contest to see who's going to be the new Pumpkin King. If you know the movie, Jack has been Pumpkin King for a long time. So this is the story of basically what breaks up their friendship and puts Jack as the Pumpkin King and Oogie Boogie as very much a rival, but also very jealous of what Jack has got. I really like this. It felt very much like the movie. I could hear the voices.
Oh, yeah.
Even the timing of how characters talk and what they say felt very natural to the movie. So definitely check out this one if your store gets it in, because sometimes these Tokyo Pops slip under the radar. But there is a variant for this, but it is a black and white version of this same cover.
Very cool. So we've got another one from Marvel. This is Danny Ketch Ghost Rider #1. So this is another one of the miniseries that Marvel's been cranking out a bunch of right now, where chronologically it takes place back around in the books of the 90s, right? So I'm not saying that the story takes place in the 90s, but it fits in. It makes reference to something that happened in Ghost Rider #1, which came out in 1990. So it fits back in there. But this is written by Howard Mackie with art by Daniel Picciotto. In this story, there's a gang war essentially in Brooklyn, which isn't necessarily something that Ghost Rider would find himself getting involved in. But there is a supernatural character known as the Broker who is granting supernatural powers to these gang members that keep fighting. But he works for somebody else as well, somebody that may or may not have ties to Ghost Rider. So Ghost Rider, even though he wouldn't just necessarily take on a couple of warring gangs if they're just hurting each other now, he does get involved, though, because they are threatening innocent lives as well. But then he really needs to get involved when they start like getting all bulky and fire coming off their bodies. And there's one character where it's two guys, and this character called the Broker gives them a supernatural ability, and what it turns out being is actually kind of fun but weird at the same time. So the Ghost Rider just kind of has to deal with all these new supernatural creatures running around. And we also get an appearance by Johnny Blaze, who, at the time he had the long ponytail and the shotgun and everything. So, all that Spirits of Vengeance stuff. So it just fits right in with that timeline, which is, I love that whole era of Ghost Rider, all the Midnight Sun stuff, Spirits of Vengeance, Night Stalkers, Morbius, all that. So this fits in with that. So this might be a good one to check out if you're also a fan of that era of Ghost Rider. So that is our A cover there. And then we have a cover here. This one is by Lubera. And then we have, speaking of 90s Ghost Rider, we've got one by Tashira, I think is how you pronounce his name. Apologies if I'm wrong on that, but that's very cool as well.
Okay, next up, I've got, make sure I got the right one, She-Hulk. This is She-Hulk issue number 13. And it's just another really fun issue. I always like to read She-Hulk. This one, she's been dealing with this mysterious thief that broke into the Baxter building, and she's had multiple run-ins with him, and he's actually, pretty charming.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, he is fun.
Well, she actually runs into them in, street clothes. She recognizes because of his charming smile, and we do learn that he refers to himself as the Scoundrel. So... Okay.
I don't think he's had a name before now, right?
I don't think he's had a name, because it really felt like presenting, the Scoundrel or whatever. But it's a really fun issue where she's, what do you do if you're, this person you've been, fighting and chasing? You just, run into them in the park and, actually get to have a conversation with them about who they are and what they're doing. Really fun issue of She-Hulk there. So there is our, of course, Jen Bartel cover. We also have a Greg Land variant. And we have another Jen Bartel cover. This one is the Spider-Verse cover.
I love the Spider-Verse covers. Yep. I want to see a series of all of those Spider-Verse characters together. All right, next from DC, we have right here Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow, #2. So, this is that series that won the DC's Round Robin event that they have every year, where you can vote on different books for them to release. And so this is the second issue of this, where in this series, John Kent, Superboy, actually goes out to, not John Kent, Connor Kent, Connor, goes out to space to try to find, he's sort of struggling. He's like, what is my place in the universe? Because, Earth has Superman, but also Superman, John Kent, Supergirl. There's all kinds of supers on the planet. Where do I fit in, is what Connor Kent's saying. So he goes into space. In this issue, he runs into a group of powered... they have power teenagers. They are known as the Cosmeteers. Felt very Legion of Superheroes-esque, except there's only 3 of them. But throughout the course of the story, he learns that they were created by the Dominators, much in the way that he was created as a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor. They were also created, they're clones. They have powers as well. Well, there's, the classic, they're good guys, right? But there's the classic tussle, the Superboy versus the Cosmeteers, so they got to fight first. But then they realize they have a common cause, and the Cosmeteers are actually going after the Dominators because there are more kids like them aboard the Dominator ship. So it turns into a big rescue mission. We don't know, it obviously goes into the next issue, so we don't know if they're successful or not. But still, if you're jonesing for some Connor Kent Superboy stuff because it's cool to finally have him back, then this would be a great series to get. So we have our A cover here, and then we have this is by Simone DeMeo. That one is really, really cool. And that's the only one, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to not have a cool cover with Connor with his leather jacket on the cover. I mean, that's just the epitome of 90s cool, and those little sunglasses.
And the little round.
I like how he drew
ones,
the glasses on Superman.
Oh, yeah.
So Superman could also be cool.
That's right.
Okay, next up, I've got, speaking of Superman, this is Superman issue number 4 from Joshua Williamson and Jamal Campbell. Just another great issue. I don't want to get into too much of the details because I think one of the strongest parts of this is kind of the discovery of what's going on. But it's a little bit more, probably a few days or weeks later from the previous issues. And Lex Luthor and Superman's partnership has actually been going pretty well, much to Superman's kind of disdain of, it's like, yeah, it has. We have, saved these people. We found this artifact all from Lex helping him. But Superman's still not too happy about it. But there is one thing that's bothering Superman, and it's the characters Dr. Farm and Graft. These are characters that have appeared through the last few issues that Superman knows about, but doesn't know a whole lot about them. And come to find out, Lex is basically like, I'm not going to tell you about them until you're ready. But they are actually not Superman villains, but Lex Luthor villains, because Lex tells Superman, while you were still in Smallville in high school, I was already making it big in Metropolis. And I had some of my own adventures before you got here. And that's where we learn kind of the secret history of Lex Luthor, where he might have had a career as a vigilante. So you have to read it to see everything, but it's a very cool, very interesting take on the character for Superman number 4. We've also got some great variants for this. We've got the Zerdy variant. I tell you, it's funny that was it
Livewire?
Livewire is on the cover. Silver Banshee is in this issue, and we learn pretty surprising thing about Silver Banshee at the end.
Yeah, we haven't seen Livewire popped up at the beginning, I think, of the first issue, and that was it. Yeah,
Yep.
so
I'm trying to think if it was. I think it's Silver Banshee. They both appear in this. I'm trying to remember what happens with them, but here is the Suyan cover with that Bizarro they've been experimenting on.
He is not having a good day.
And then we have this really fancy. It's going to be hard to see on here, but this is the gold foil Mark Brooks variant.
Holy cow, that's great. Wow. So going back to Marvel, we've got Spider-Man 2099 Dark Genesis number 3. I think this is a 5-issue miniseries. This is still just continuing the story that's been going on since the first issue. The battle is raging on between Carnage of 2099, and he's kind of got a partner named Jack, but I think it's kind of the 2099 version of the Jackal. He doesn't really talk about cloning too much, but he's got the green skin and he's got this long white hair. He's kind of like squirmy, like he just feels like a future version of the Jackal, but. They're still, so Carnage and Jack are still fighting against Spider-Man and Spider-Woman and Blade of 2099, obviously. But then we also have Moon Knight and Venom of 2099 doing their own thing too. And then they eventually come to join the other 3 heroes. To me, this feels a lot like the Maximum Carnage story from the early 90s, because you have Carnage and his cohorts causing a whole bunch of chaos, but then you have just this whole hodgepodge of heroes coming in to face them. It does kind of feel like that, only just in 2099. So that's pretty. I really love that story from back then. So that's pretty interesting. So we do have our A cover here featuring a new. I guess that's a new Punisher 2099. I will say that he's not in this issue, so I'm not really sure why he's on the cover. So we don't know much about him yet. Then we also have our Rod Reese cover here. And then we have our Ken Lashley frame variant featuring the very coolly designed Daredevil 2099. Or I guess this is a new Daredevil 2099 because there was one before, but this one's a different one, I believe.
Okay, next up I've got Star Wars High Republic Adventures. This is the Nameless Terror. This is the final issue, number 4. Yeah, 4 of 4. Just a really great wrap up to this. Kind of feels like a premium series. They gave it kind of the nice glossy cover for each issue. It feels kind of like a little event book at Dark Horse. But this has been Ty York, the Jedi in the High Republic, telling her droid this story about this nameless terror that was killing Jedi a few hundred years before. And it's really good. She kind of wraps up her story in this. What I thought was interesting, too, is we get the return of a character we saw in Monster of Temple Peak, her first comic appearance, that was kind of a character that she was saving and all of that. That character makes their return. Their name is Drew... Let's see.
Carey.
Drewin.
Oh.
No, not Drew Carey.
Not Drew Carey.
Drewin. And funny enough, he refers to her as Master, even though she's kind of shrugged off the Jedi path and everything. And she kind of schmarmily calls him Padawan. Just interesting because it looks like they will be continuing their story in something else coming up. So that is the final issue of Star Wars High Republic Adventures, The Nameless Terror. Mouthful.
That's a mouthful, yeah. So last one for me is the Mighty Barbarians #2. This is from Ablaze. This is written by Michael Morecci with art by Giuseppe Cafaro. This is a really fun book as well. So in the first issue, the sorceress Morgan Le Fay it's a kind of a multiverse story. Not that they're traversing the multiverse, but she reaches out to different universes and plucks heroes from that universe. So we have Call, we have Nanook, Anansi, and then a Viking warrior named Burka. She pulls them all together from different worlds. They are on a quest to find the orbs of the Ancient Ones. They have to find those in order to save all of their worlds. So in this issue, their quest to find those orbs takes them to Atlantis, where Cull is from, but it's Atlantis before it was underwater, I guess. And since Cull is from there, he's able to sort of interface with the spirits that are there. But then they get some information about where one of the orbs is, and it's in Hades. So they actually have to travel literally to Hades, and they have to fight against a goddess of the underworld there to get it. Just a really fun... the way they speak actually is they speak kind of modern, but they are like, King Cull, he was around before Conan was, and you have other barbarians too. So you got a little modern speak, but still with like classic characters, like barbarians, things like that. Which is a lot of fun seeing them team up, and they sort of get along and they sort of don't. But the art is really great too. So this is a really, really fun book if you're into barbarians and sword and sorcery, fantasy type books. This is a great one to check out. So our A cover is right there, and then we have a really fun X-Men homage variant. This is done by Cassis. That one's really funny.
Yeah. Everyone taking their positions.
Yeah.
It's fun. Okay, last big book for me, at least to mention, is there is a new Red Room out. This is Red Room Crypto Killers #1. This kind of came out, I know there's a lot of big Red Room fans, and this one didn't have as much fanfare coming out before it, so I don't know if everyone knows this is coming out.
I didn't know that it was coming out. Like, I read the first series, I read a little bit of the second. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, it kind of just popped up. But this one's really interesting. Like all Red Room books, it is a one-shot story. You know, you can pick up any one if you have the stomach for it.
Right.
But this one is really cool because it actually follows the daughter of one of the Red Room killers.
Yeah.
But she knew he was a bad guy, but didn't know this about him. But apparently, he made a lot of money with the Red Room, and that money is somewhere. And you've got people who are trying to break in and find how this is kept, all the while she is learning the truth about her father. So, very interesting issue. Actually has some issues are more kind of shock value, and some have a really interesting narrative. This one is definitely a narrative-driven one. So definitely, if you enjoy Red Room, don't miss this one. And then, finally, wanted to mention, we have Spider-Man number 7, second printing coming out. This time with this Vigil Spider-Boy variant. Of course, this is the first appearance of Spider-Boy. I know a lot of people are going to be running out trying to get this one, so don't miss out that this one is coming out on Wednesday.
Yeah, and on FOC this past weekend was the second printing of Spider-Man number 8, which is Spider-Boy's second appearance.
We'll see how long this keeps going.
Yeah.
But that is all for this week. We went over roughly about 20 comics total. Really big week. So definitely head to your comic book store or go over to infinityflux.net where you can order any of these comics. You can pre-order any. You can subscribe. Be one of our pull box customers. We would love that. You get 10% off everything in your pull box. And we will see y'all. I believe Jason will be back for Comics from the Future coming up on Friday. So definitely stick around for that one.
And if you want to drop by Whatnot on Thursday night, I'll be there selling some silver, bronze, and modern age books for half off fair market value.
Yeah, there we go. So follow us everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, all that fun stuff at Infinity Flux. And until next time, goodbye.
See ya.